So groceries per week without supplements, just grocery store, about $400 a
I was
week.
gonna say 500, yeah. The way we look is a conversation piece a lot of times.
And to wish death on somebody or to talk about how this guy's gonna die, I mean, that just leaves a really rotten feeling in my gut. Absolutely nuts.
I don't even want to think about it. I'm gonna do this.
Bodybuilding is an extreme lifestyle that requires years of hard work, dedication, and sacrifice that only a few can take to a professional level. But what is life like for these athletes off the stage? We sat down with Brent and Autumn Swansen, a married couple who both compete in the IFBB Pro League, to give an inside look at what it's like being the most muscular couple in America.
I always, and still this day, use Beverly International supplements. I think the protein powder still this day is some of the best. So they have this newsletter that's called No Nonsense Newsletter, and I was 19 years old and just did my first show. I got the magazine. I would always read through the magazine, and they did a profile on her. I was like, man, like this girl seems like the female version of me. She was on Facebook, and this was like when Facebook, you had to have a college email. Like if you didn't have if you didn't go to college and have a college email, like you couldn't even be on Facebook. And this was like 2006 or 7, around that time period. So I messaged her, and then she messaged me back. And we messaged each other back and forth. Then we started talking on the phone because she couldn't text back then. So we talked on the phone for hours. And then I was invited for a show. This was when we still email. And she's like, well, if I had your number, I'd wish you good luck. So then I knew I was in. So then we started talking.
He wasn't getting it.
And
You
then,
weren't getting it.
And then luckily, my sister went to med school at the University of Louisville, which is like an hour and a half away from her. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna go visit my sister over Labor Day weekend. Do you wanna meet up and hang out? So then we hung out. And then after that, we had a long distance relationship. And then she moved to Decatur for a year. Then she went back to physical therapy school and became a doctor. And then we got married. 18 years later, here we are.
I think our dynamic is better when we're both in prep for a show. I mean, it does make it hard, especially when we're traveling, because, you know, we're both like brain dead and like, which way do we go? And we're, you know, kind of in a daze and confused. And then heaven forbid if Brent's blood sugar goes low, and, you know, that throws that monkey wrench in there. But I think for the most part, we both prefer that we're both dieting together. That way, misery loves company, you know, you don't have to sit and watch the other one partake in something that, you know, you can't. So I think we enjoy kind of being on the same eating schedule when we get to indulge together, and then when we have to deprive together, because I can't complain because he's doing the same thing. He can't complain because I'm doing the same thing. So it keeps our complaining down, I feel like, for the most part. So
I think that it's easier as well because there's been times where Shane's been doing a show and I haven't. And then it's just like, well, I would like to go out to eat, or I would like to go see a movie, or I'd like to go on a date night. And in prep, that doesn't ever happen. Like, it's just too taxing. We have a full-time job during the week. The weekends are to rest and get ready for the next week. So if you both are locked in, then that's cool. And then when you're done, then you can like go back to living a great married life.
Work and play.
Yeah, so it just is what it is. So like we're doing shows this summer. Then when we get done, we have a boat. We'll be able to go out on the boat. We have a swimming pool. We'll be able to go to concerts. We're going to Miami. We're going to go on vacation, you know? So there's time where you have to pull back on those things, and there's times that you have to push. And we just know that like when we are both in that push mode, like there's no plan B. There's plan A, and if you can't stick to plan A, then you don't need to compete, and that's your sign to get out.
I think being female and being strong and having muscles, there are definitely pros and cons. You know, like in my line of work as a physical therapist, sometimes it can be a pro because people feel secure with me. You know, I may be working with a very disabled person, a very large person in size and stature, and they look at me and they're like, oh, I can trust you. We're not gonna go down on the floor, you know? So a lot of times people have a lot of confidence in me just by what I look like, or it can be the opposite way. Like I can remember my mama was like the worst. Like she was like, all your muscle, what are you gonna do? All your muscles are just gonna turn to flab. And she was like, you know, I have loved my mom to death, but like she was definitely very judgmental about me ever lifting weights, and that you know, that whole generation, that wasn't, you know, commonplace, whereas now it's more commonplace for women to lift weights and it's more accepting. So, and I think it just all goes back to not passing judgment on people in their walks of life. You know, everyone has had different walks of life for different reasons, and you know, there's always something that you can take away from someone else, even if you don't believe in everything fully that they do. You know, you can find some common grounds. I realize, at least, I think everybody should appreciate that the foundation of this whole sport is bodybuilding and men's bodybuilding. That's all there used to even be. It is, you know, a little bit of a distaste in the mouth sometimes when you're at shows and the prize money, when there's a big discrepancy. And, you know, there are people out there doing great efforts to help women and help the divisions. But unfortunately, I think we're going to always have that, just because that is the driving force of the sport. And just like anything else, you know, so I don't really hold any judgment, but, you know, that is a drawback for women competing. You know, I think that's probably why a lot of, you know, people that can do women's bodybuilding, like if I could, I would, because that's where the most monetary gains are with competing. But most of us don't ever do this for the money. I know that I've never thought about the money ever, so we just do it because we love it, and then that's just a perk to help with your contest expenses, is how I've always looked at it.
Whatever your hobby is, you're going to put money into, right? So even though it's a professional sport and we are professionals, like there's very few who can do this long term as their own jobs. That's why, you know, we both have careers outside of the sport, to where we don't rely on making money from this. This is our passion project. It makes it hard because we work more than a full-time job, and this is a full-time job on top of that. But, you know, whatever you are passionate about, if it's worth it to you, you'll make time for that. So, you have your IFBB Pro card, which I just paid for mine. Autumn's got to pay for everything. It's like $250, $275 in Pro card. On top of that, you have hotel expenses. So I think our hotel, the Toronto Pro, we get there on Thursday and we leave on Monday. We are at about $900 in hotel fees. We are sponsored by ProTan, but if we weren't sponsored by ProTan, that would be about $250 each for a tan. On top of that, hair and makeup Autumn does on her own, but if you have the hair and makeup done, that's about another $500. On top of that, a rental car, unless you get an Uber, a rental car is about another $400 or $500 for, you know, 4 or 5 days, about $100 a day. Airfare, our airfare to Toronto from Chicago was about $1,000 total. To LA and Muscle Lake covered that. I think it was about $1,200 to LA. And it depends where you go, like as far as like expenses, but I mean, those are just some of the expenses just to get to the show. We're competing in Open and Masters. Mm-hmm. For Masters, it's a $250 entry fee for each of us. So there's just that, right? Okay, then we got to talk about...
I'm getting anxiety talking about...
Then we have to talk about food. So groceries per week without supplements, just grocery store, about $400 a week.
I was going to say 500, yeah.
$400 a week, and you think about all these things. Then we even talked about supplements. So it gets nuts. It can get nuts, absolutely nuts.
I don't even want to think about it. I'm gonna do this.
I mean, golly, I would say I think per year is easiest. So we both do like 2 shows per year. If you take away our sponsorships, I would easily say 15 to 20 total. I just think it opens doors, right? So everywhere I go, and this isn't to sound arrogant, but there's always comments, whether positive or negative, like you said. So I think it's kind of a cool segue because people, like, when they look at me, they're like, oh, well, he must be some big idiotic bodybuilder. But then when they realize I have 2 master's degrees, I'm a school teacher, and I'm actually intelligent, and I have brains, and also I'm a type 1 diabetic who has had to do this, who is still healthy in doing so, I think they're like, whoa, like, you're kind of like a diamond in the rough. I like to spread the love of positivity and just being a good human being and brightening somebody's day and doing that. So for all the, you know, people who just want to hate, you have so many more people who are just positive with it.
And see, I work in the elderly population, so I think like even just last night we did our skit as She and He Hulk, and there was this older lady in the bathroom was just like, I just love you guys, everything you stand for and what you had to say and how you carry yourself, and you know, you never know like how you're gonna impact someone, and we'll see people years later, people that we never even knew, that they'll refer back. Yeah. I remember when this.
Yeah, they'll say
and
something.
You're like,
I don't even
wow,
remember doing it.
like you know, or people will be like, and I don't get freaked out by it. Like I'm like honored when people will be like, I have pictures of you like in my cupboard to remind me of like what I want to do with myself and my goals and things. So that's always really cool. I think you know, it's kind of like the way we look is a conversation piece a lot of times, because you know like people want us, you know, we do stand out, so like it's a good conversation, and then you get to know people and hear their stories.
Like so much more positive than negatives, but I feel like the negative people always want to chime in, and then half the time when they say stuff, it's like troll accounts because they never want to own what they say. It really hurts me when people say, this guy's gonna die in 6 months, this guy will make it 6 more months, or this guy's gonna die at 30. Well, I'm 38. To wish death on somebody or to talk about how this guy's gonna die, I mean, that just leaves a really rotten feeling in my gut. And you know, a lot of times I just ignore those comments because the person doesn't know me and it shouldn't affect my life, because if they're gonna say something like that, their life must be pretty freaking miserable. But I will say it's easy for me to ignore those things when they're aimed towards me, when those things are aimed towards my wife, and then people say negative things about my wife. It's very hard for me to bite my tongue.
And I'm the same way. Like, I don't care when people call me a man. Like, I'm used to that, like, my whole life. I'm the same way when people say things about him, then I'll, like, you know, get defensive.
But it's part of the territory, and with anything there's good and bad, and that's just kind of how you got to roll with it, and just know, I keep my circle small. I know who loves me, I know who supports me, and I know the type of person I am in my life. That I can look at myself in the mirror every night and know that I'm trying to be the best version of myself, mind, body, spirit, and that's all you can really do at the end of the day.